Okay. Hey, Mitch. It's so great to
Hey,
see you.
Joanne.
It's
Good to see
probably
you
been,
too.
has it been 15 years, maybe?
It,
Six?
it's been a while. It's
It's
been
been
a
a
while,
while.
but
Yeah.
yes, I'm
So
very
I'm
excited to
really
be here.
good. And I'm
Uh,
really glad that I'm glad that we're connecting, and I'm glad that you're willing to do this
yeah,
talk with me so that I could expose engineering students at Cabrillo to what you've been doing and what you've been up to. So
yes.
we're recording this,
Okay.
and I'm going to pin you so that I know it's going to be on you. Okay.
All
So
right.
Mitch, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I know I've already given you those questions, and you could just talk. And okay.
I'm
So why
ready.
don't you start out, Mitch, with where you grew up, where you're from?
Okay. So I was born in Zambia in a town called Ndola. For folks who don't know where Zambia is, it's in the southern part of Africa.
Thank you. And then how did you, Mitch, get interested in engineering, and which field of engineering did you decide to go into, and why?
Okay. I think like every kid out there, we're very curious and we always want to like figure out how things work. I think for me, that curiosity was just nurtured through my childhood. I remember when I was young, I broke my parents' antique radio because I wanted to see what was in there and how it worked. Needless to say, it never works after that. After a brief period of my parents not being happy, they kind of like used that to tease me about my curiosity, and at the same time encouraged me to be curious. So when I reached, I think, secondary school, which is high school, I joined the Junior Engineering and Technical Society, which is JETS. So I was able to just play around. I thought it was playing, but it was actually helping me just nurture that curiosity, that interest in science and technology. And when I was like close to the end of high school, I think I knew that I wanted to get into engineering. And at that point, at that time, I think the Silicon Valley was happening. It was like, I heard a lot about the Silicon Valley, and I said to myself, I needed to go there. I needed to find myself there and and just be part of a community of people that were like changing the world. So I think that's how I got into the engineering. How I got into mechanical engineering is another part. I have a passion for art, and so I thought like mechanical engineering and art or some similarities. That is the physical form of like the parts that you make in mechanical engineering. You have to think about function, and that was very appealing to me. But then I didn't know that. I had to figure that out. And the way I figured that out was by job shadowing other engineers to figure out what they do. And believe it or not, I did that while taking a class at Cabrillo College. I think it was engineering 5 where we were asked to job shadow some uh, some engineers. I ended up job shadowing 3 engineers because first engineer uh, and then when I went to the mechanical engineering place, I think that was Fox Shocks place that make bicycles. I was just taken. I was convinced, and from then on, I was sold that I was a mechanical engineer, and that's the path I took.
Thanks, Mitch. Okay, then what made you choose or decide to come to Cabrillo? And maybe you could talk about your time at Cabrillo and then we'll talk about the university you decided to transfer to. So let's start with Cabrillo.
Okay, so for Cabrillo, like as I mentioned, I wanted to be in a place that that would help me achieve the dreams I had. First, I didn't know how I was going to do it because, like most people out there, I didn't have somebody close to me who was an engineer or who has been through that path, and so I needed to find a place that would help me figure things out. And to me, Cabrillo was that place. I had friends who were attending Cabrillo College in other departments, um, and so I just decided to come over and ask some questions. I asked a lot of people. I asked what I needed to do to get into Cabrillo, what kind of programs they had. And I also asked about how my education actually from Zambia will translate to credits at Cabrillo. And so after doing that, I applied, but it wasn't until I was actually at Cabrillo College that's when I realized just how much Cabrillo had to offer, because there's so much that is part of, especially the mechanical engineering department, the services that they offer to the students to help them like be successful through their classes, as well as figuring out what to do next. I think to me, that is something that I really enjoyed about Cabrillo College.
Cool. Thanks, Mitch. And then how about talk about universities? When you were at a point at Cabrillo where you had to decide where to transfer, what were you looking at and what did you make your decision to go to?
Okay. All right. So like every student, right, we want to hedge our bets. We like, I needed to apply to a safe school. And then I also had the schools that I wanted to apply to. One of them was RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And for RPI, like as soon as I heard about the school and did research on the school, I think it really appealed to me because their slogan then I think had changed to "Why not change the world?" And I had just come from Zambia. I was excited, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. And then with the resources at Cabrillo College, I was able to like figure out what I needed to get into those colleges. Needless to say, I did not get into my safe school. So for a brief period, I was very sad because I thought that if I can't get into my safe school, how am I going to get into these other schools? I ended up getting into the other schools that I had applied to. So everything turned out to be great. But I ended up choosing Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I think mainly because one, it offered amazing opportunities for undergraduate research, which I took advantage of throughout my time there. And just like Cabrillo College, it had a lot of resources to help students just do what they wanted to do, be challenged in the areas that they need to be challenged. So that's my experience at RPI was a wonderful experience.
Okay. And then what about in terms of projects maybe that you had at school that were exciting to you, or we can move on to, your work experience as well. So start talking about engineering things.
Okay, all right. So I can share with you I have a portfolio that I've like been documenting my projects, and I've worked on amazing projects. It's impossible. It is possible, but listing them all will just take up too much space. So I just picked up a few that I think exciting to share with folks out there. And I hope, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, I can, Mitch.
Okay. So I'll go in and I'll start with my most recent projects, and then as we go through, you'll see, and then the last project will probably be something that I did some time back, hopefully to create a picture of where I started and where I am now. Okay, so I'm in the semiconductor industry. I've been in this industry for about 7 years now. My recent projects, I was project lead. This is something that I started doing recently. It's like, all right, I've been designing for some time now. I want to get into some leadership roles where I help other engineers achieve the tasks that they're doing, remove any obstacles they have, so that we have a successful launch of the project. So the most recent project was for the Aurora project. You can Google it. It's a supercomputer. My part was to ensure that we're able to validate the CPU that goes into this the supercomputer, as well as the thermal solution used to cool this thing. So I was managing the design, the delivery of the design, as well as ensuring that we're able to test through vigorous conditions to make sure that at the end of the day, this works as it should. So that's the Aurora project. And then I've worked on qualifying tools. One of my, the tools I've qualified was the ultra fast laser scribe, working with vendors, back and forth, finding out what is important to us, how, and creating specifications, making sure that we have safety. Safety is very critical. So just that process of going back and forth, and at the end having, I don't know, maybe dozens of, not hundreds of these tools all over the world, and know that you were a part of making it happen is exciting. So I have that. And then not only do you qualify tools, you need to qualify the process. So I ended up starting, I established the FA capabilities in the group that I was, so that we can expedite problem solving, because you want to understand the problem. You want to understand the impacts of what your processing tool does to your product, and how you can make your process better. And so it's just like school. You're learning, but in this instance, you're learning on the fly, and you're using what you know to come up with solutions on how you can solve it. Again, this is design. Like, one thing is that you get to work with engineers with different backgrounds, with coming from different fields, and combining that knowledge to come up with systems that work. So that process of collaboration and teamwork, and teams, like diverse teams. I have worked in teams that, well, you have people located in Israel, Mexico, Malaysia, China, and you're all collaborating to make a product or a solution. And so understanding how things work across the board is very important and key, and just knowing what you bring to the table as well. The value of what you bring to the table is also something amazing I like about engineering. So all this I did. This was one of my designs. Um, and then some interesting things is like, especially in the field that I'm in, is like sometimes we work like we're in a startup where if a team wants a solution and they want it right now, ask you, is like, hey, Mitch, this is a problem we're having. Can you design a heat sink? And this is what we have. What can you do? And we need it right now. So you end up putting things together. As you can see here, we're holding things down with kept on tape. But at the end, we're able to provide a solution. Yes, it's not clean, but these are exciting things sometimes that you get to do in these teams. Yeah, some more small designs that we get to do. All right. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to work with OEM customers. I couldn't put the actual product that I worked on, so I had to put the stock image there, but you can guess what OEM customer it is from that pen. But it is amazing, like collaborating with other engineers from other companies as well, and knowing that you are bringing value to the product, and this product is going to be out in the world. It's like, I love engineering. I just love it. All right, so these are some other projects I've worked on. These are from my college days, internship days. So like these projects are, I think I still like very dear to my heart because they taught me a lot. And if we have students there who have the opportunity to go on internships, I highly recommend that you go on internships. They really give you a good feel of what you are capable of, and that's that knowledge is invaluable. So I had the opportunity of actually interning at NASA, a Marshall Space Flight Center. Here, meeting some of the astronauts with other interns. We got to almost see a space shuttle launch, but they kept scrapping it. I was very sad that we had to go back to work, and then it launched on our drive back to work. But we got some good pictures while we were there. So during my internship, we had a design challenge. We were supposed to design a third stage solid rocket system to enter into a transfer orbit from Earth to the moon. This was an exciting project. I think it's been 10 years since I did this, and we'll share the link. You can read through some of the requirements. But the reason I was selected to be part of the intern class in 2010 was to work on the Aero Capture project. The Aero Capture project was a project where we were testing shielding materials for proposed re-entry vehicles that were slated for for missions to Mars or moon of Jupiter. And so during my internship there, we were testing different materials and then collecting data, And then that data is going to be used if that material is viable for any of these missions. And there's a link there that can talks about the error capture project. If you click on it, I should have clicked in a, let's see if it comes up. Yeah, so that's the error capture project. You can read through it. It's very interesting. Uses a planet's atmosphere as a braking system for the vehicles. Okay, so moving on. One of the other projects I did at RRPI was where I was asked to design a unit used to detect air quality among other things. So this is a culturally situated community sensing. This, and you can look it up or just go to my link. I'll share this link as well. So this was used, let me go to the actual design. So this was the design, used the Arduino with different sensors. And so I had to create the housing and then do the wiring, a lot of soldering. This was during my college days, so this was very, very exciting. And in the end, this is what it looked like. This was used as an educational aid, was used in the Navajo Nation. Students were able to use this, collect data, and they'll use that data to learn more about their environment. It was also used in Peru, in some poor areas in Peru, to understand, to teach them about indoor air qualities. I know some rural areas in Africa, when they cook inside the house. So never without understanding how harmful or how much pollution is in the air, you end up, if you don't know how much pollution is in the air, you're not too cautious about your health. But with this, you're able to teach the community, and they'll clearly see the difference between clean air and polluted air, especially if it's indoor. And you can talk about the health effects that come with that. This was a green roof design. This is a monitoring system, again, for urban living. If you have like a green roof, you want to monitor your roof, make sure that it's, so this was a college project. So it's a very exciting project. This was a final design, and had the temp, humidity, moisture, CO2. And then and I did a low-cost permanent magnet motor design. This was my team. I can go through the project. We had different versions and had to use all this analysis to figure out which one of these is a viable solution. And of course, we have the team at Cabrillo College. Yeah, this is where it all started, with the different projects that we did. Here we designed kind of like, I think, a solution that would help you put those draft boards easier, because it was a pain getting those things in and out. And
I
so we
remember you
said,
guys made that. It was awesome.
yeah. And then this is us making the Rube Goldberg system.
Yeah.
That would you would see it in a video. When you click in the video, you see what we did. yeah. Anyway, so these are some of the projects that I've worked on. One project that you don't see here is a project I did right after college. As I just got hired on, and he said, "Well, you're a mechanical engineer, so we need you to design a test fixture and an enclosure that will hold the test board. The test board can't withstand the test environment, so you have to figure out how to protect the test board from the test environment, which is like, minus, do temperature cycling. And that was an interesting, I like that project because it I think it showed me that everything I've learned from my time at Cabrillo to like just graduating from RPI is that it showed me that I'm able to do this because I was the only mechanical engineer in a team of electrical software engineers. I had two technicians that were working with me. So it also taught me uh, like cross-functional teamwork. It taught me about leadership. It also taught me about just like ownership, like owning, knowing that, when you accept a project or when you're part of a project, the same things that we have learned in class, then you are doing it to get the grade. If you're not showing up, if your grades will go down. If you're not contributing, then you dock the grades. But here, people are actually depending on you as the engineer, and I was the only mechanical engineer. So all the questions that were coming up, even if I didn't know the answer then, I knew that was my responsibility to go find those answers and just leverage everything you've learned, and then check and okay the solutions that you bring back and say, okay, I've verified this, that okay, this is what we need to do to solve these problems.
Well, thanks, Mitch. Boy, you've had a lot of experience. And I really loved seeing some of the projects that you did at RPI as well. It gives me a good feel for what RPI is like. It looks like their focus was really designing things to help people, you know, the green roof and then the the environment sensor. They were really, really neat.
Yes, that's yeah, and they have like it's one thing I just really loved about RPI is that they really are a hands-on. They that hands-on approach is very big.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so they'll teach you how to go and do the work,
Yeah.
and that's something that.
Okay. Okay, Mitch, so I have two more questions for you. So one is, how has your engineering degree impacted your life, or how does it impact your quality of life, I guess? What opportunities have you experienced because you have the degree? So that's my first question.
Okay. I mean, you've seen it partly on the projects that I've worked on. And I think to me, it's not just the projects, but it's the being able to meet all these people I've met along the way that are working on things that are exciting, brilliant minds. Because sometimes I find myself in rooms and I'm like, I can't believe I'm here, and and talking to these people who have designed this, who are working, right? And at some point they turn to me and ask me what I have, uh, what I've done, uh, and I'm contributing to what we're doing together. So it's like what. so from that of just like being part of this community of people, that's amazing. I mean, the pay is also great, and I'll say that. The other thing is that it has allowed me to just uh, live the kind of life that I enjoy. I'm able to take care of my kids, give them the quality life, provide for them. Uh, I I wouldn't say I grew up poor, but I also uh, know that my parents struggled to make sure that they gave what I needed, because like they valued education. So you'd see them struggle to make sure that we go to school, and I'm able to do that with for my kids and not worry about that as much as my parents did.
Mm, great.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, and then what is a suggestion or suggestions you have for the current engineering students at Cabrillo who are just beginning or on their educational path towards their career? What are some suggestions you would have for them?
Be resilient. Don't give up. Be resilient. Okay. Uh, I mean, don't let a bad grade stop you. I've had a few. Uh, don't let them make you think that you're not cut out to be an engineer. No, that's not it. I've, you'll face some challenges, be it personal, be it academic, uh, financial. I've faced all these in my. Joanne knows this. I've faced all these just right in the beginning of my journey. I could have given up, and thankfully I didn't give up, because I am so grateful to be where I am right now. Just I can't imagine not having finished.
Mm,
It was tough. It was not easy. Well, it was also exciting. It was both. It was both tough and exciting. And some courses, make you think like you need to give up. And some people gave up. Some people who I thought were way better than me in those courses. Uh, but I would say don't give up. Just uh, find a way, go and get help. Cabrillo College has a lot of resources. I know for some students out there, you have to juggle work, family, uh, the finances. And I think Cabrillo College really helped me in tackling the academic part. Instructors are always willing to help answer questions. I used to ask a lot of questions in class. Uh, yeah, just don't give up. Be resilient. And if you're taking classes at Cabrillo College, you know what resilience is, what being resilient
mm,
means. Yeah.
yeah. And Mitch, I think it's cool that, you grew up in Zambia and then you knew Silicon Valley so that you came to Cabrillo and then you
Mhm.
transferred to RPI in New York and now you live as an engineer
Yes.
in Portland, Oregon. So I think that engineering also gives you the opportunity to be many places that you want to be because there's work for engineers all
Exactly.
over.
Yes. Yes. They need engineers in everything. You find like engineering opportunities everywhere. If I wanted to go and live in England right now, I can do it with my engineering degree. Uh, so it opens doors that you cannot even imagine right now.
Mm,
Even right myself right now, I cannot imagine how many other doors, because that's just how it has ended up working out for me.
mm,
And just so grateful for having stuck to it, and for all the people that have helped me get to where I need to be. So just yeah.
Mhm.
I say keep at it, and uh, it's well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm really glad that you're mentioning the idea of resilience because, yeah, there's a lot of struggles along the way, and I remember there were issues with you as well, and it's very easy to give up. But to look at where you are now, you're so happy and so proud that you stuck it out and got to where you are, and you have an amazing life now. And thanks for
Yeah.
letting me meet your wife, and good luck with your daughters. And
Yes.
hopefully I'll
Thank
see you
you.
in California soon.
Well, I'm hoping one of them is showing that she's an engineer. She likes building things, creating things. So, so I look at that, I was like, oh, okay, so let me keep encouraging that
Yeah,
because uh, it's exciting to see.
yeah. And we started a girls in engineering program about 12 years ago, a summer camp for middle school kids. So maybe
Yeah.
you could spend a week in Santa Cruz in a few years with
Yes.
middle school grade.
Yes. That would be awesome. That
Yeah,
would be awesome. Yeah. I'll actually do that. Actually,
cool.
I will do it if it's still, yeah.
Great.
All right,
Okay, Mitch.
thanks,
Well, thanks so
Joanne.
much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Bye.